My name is Ekundaya Ajayi, and I am a team member of the NESG Academy. Thank you so much for coming on board. So we'll just allow people to join in for a few more minutes. Once it's 12:05, we'll just kick off. Thank you. Okay, once again, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar, Themed Corporate and Societal Ethics and Governance. Awesome weather. Yes, it's been raining all day. I want to believe it's raining where you are too, but then it's a perfect weather just for this webinar, really. So yes, this is our second edition. We had a pilot program last month, tagged leading through storytelling, a very, very good session, I must say. And I believe today's session is going to be more insightful. So permit me to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Alawusa Adewuyi. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, and thank you everybody for having me. Can I just go ahead?
1 minute, sir. I'd like to read out your profile to our guests so they have an
Thank
idea
you.
of who Mr. Alawusa is. So please permit me to read out his profile. Mr. Alawusa is an accomplished legal practitioner with over 28 years post-call experience, 22 years of which represents hands-on experience in the financial service industry, handling a wide spectrum of financial services. That's awesome. Legal company, secretariat-related services as well. As a lawyer with expertise in banking, he has been involved in arranging long-term financing to fund big-ticket projects for a number of corporations through the issuance of debt instruments, while also advising on numerous credit creation and remedial activities. Through his corporate banking career, he has managed the legal aspects of a wide array of short-term credit facilities, both in local and foreign currencies, to fund working capital in the area of trade and project finance. In essence, he has covered the entire spectrum of short and long-term financing, blended with in-depth advisory role to management with respect to credit administration. His professional career commenced with Olawoyin and Olawoyin legal practitioners, where he was an associate. He was part of the team in Olawoyin and Olawoyin when Professor G.A. Olawoyin was admitted into the inner bar in September 1998. It's come a long way. His banking career kicked off with the United Bank for Africa, UBA, where he functioned as a legal officer. Mr. Lausa had an extensive banking experience, also in Intercontinental Bank and many of its subsidiaries. After which, he moved on to Kakawa Discount House, now known as FBN Quest Merchant Bank, in 2011. He held the position of the company secretary and head legal services at FBN Quest Merchant Bank for 9 years. And he was the arrowhead in the legal services division during the acquisition of Kakawa Discount House by the FBN Group, the First Bank Group, actually. And then, I mean, he's done this successfully, supported the documentation and advisory requirements for the exercise. Then he joined the ARM holding company where he currently works as the group company secretary. He joined them in May 2020, and he has added responsibilities for the development and sustainability practice of the group. He has extensive experience in boardroom management as part of his company secretarial role and has supported several boards with diverse experiences and constitution during his career. Mr. Alawusa holds a first degree in law from the Obafemi Awolowo University. He holds a BL from the Nigerian Law School. He also holds a Masters of Law from the University of London. He is an alumni of the Lagos Business School and a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Secretaries and Administrators, both in the UK and in Nigeria. Quite a profile, I tell you. Mr. Alawusa is a very practical leader. Of course, he is matured and he's married with children. I love your profile, sir. Thank you very much for joining us once again. So you can see that our speaker is full of experience, years of experience. He has so much knowledge to give us today. So I would want us to really be, attentive. Let's make it an interactive session as well. There's so much knowledge to get from him. I hope we make the most of it. Thank you very much, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon again, everyone. Let me say thank you to the NESG Academy team for this great privilege. I'm going to be asking you to forgive me ahead because I don't like theory so much. I like to be practical when I'm delivering or facilitating like this. I like to deliver things that people can, cogent things that they can take away, not just reference to a lot of text that you can get anywhere that you turn to. And so when they asked me to deliver this topic, I had to ask myself really, because each word there is key, and you can have a whole seminar on each of the words. You see the corporate side, societal ethics, or even just governance. You can even have 1 week on just looking at governance. These are extremely important topics. But these are topics that are after my heart, and in the last 20-something years of my life, I've tried to work on. So I put up a small outline just to guide our discussion today. I will start with a trivia, maybe somebody's life experience, and then I will define my understanding of what the topic is, and then what the law says about that topic, at least the expectations, even if I'm not going to go granular into aspects of the law, but I will pick bits and pieces of what the law expects us to do in this type of topic, and then how the codes that the law expects are established, and then how efficient they are in achieving what is expected, and then who are the stakeholders, so the social aspect of our discussion, and then I will try and reflect from my past experience over the last almost 30 years on what I've seen people do and how they undermine ethics and then societal, corporate and societal ethics within their systems. So without much ado, I will move into my trivia. And please permit me to read through. I'll try as much as possible to be quick about it. And so it is a story about a young man, Ade, that worked in a bank that became distressed. So if we are familiar with how CBN works, when CBN takes over a bank, you sack the entire management team of that bank, and then they bring in their own representatives. The intention is to stabilize that bank, reposition it, and then sell to somebody to run the bank better than the former management and the owners. So this happened to Ade, and at that time, Ade was reported to a divisional head, and when CBN took over, everybody was asked to go. Ade just found himself as a leader. Now, I'm using this story to set the tone of what we are going to be discussing today, so that you understand the perspective and context from where I'm coming from. So when Ade found himself as the divisional head, he had some problems. The first thing is that he had to sign a securities charge to the bank, and he was not a signatory to the at the CAC, so he couldn't sign. So those things kept piling up. And in a bid to actually get those things perfected, he sought audience with the chairman and asked chairman to sign documents to admit him as a signatory of the bank at the Corporate Affairs Commission. Now, you need to understand that at that time, when everybody was sacked, the documentation at CAC, banks, and everywhere was yet to be changed. The incoming directors were here to change those things, so he wouldn't have had to go to the chairman, but he had to go to the old people to get those documents signed so that he can do his job. And now, if NESG will allow me, I will need one or two people to give an opinion on how Ade should handle this matter. I hope I'm audible. I hope people can hear me. How do you think Ade should handle this matter? And I'm going to be asking for one or two people to share an opinion on this.
Yes, we can hear you, sir. So please, if you'd like
Yes.
to contribute to this, could you please raise your hand so we don't get the session too crowded? And then you cannot just unmute.
Anybody on meeting so that we don't take too much time? Or are they still trying to understand the trivia? Let it sink in properly.
Or if you'd like Mr. Lausa to take the trivia again, please let us know so you have a deeper understanding and context to it.
So I just paraphrased, really. This is what happened to a young man who suddenly became head of a department in a bank and needed to get his name and signature filed with the Corporate Affairs Commission so that he could sign for the bank. And the circumstances around that the chairman was still in shock about what happened. All the others, including this gentleman's boss, were his very close friends. And this person is saying, please, chairman, can you allow me to sign for the bank? And how should we have handled this matter? How should they handle it? If I'm not getting a response, maybe I'll move on and then I'll come back to this at the end of the webinar so that we don't spend too much time on it because I can't see any hands raised up. Okay, so if I go to the next slide, I'm going, because it's a true life story, I'm going to be sharing what happened to Ade. And at the end of the webinar, having listened to everything I have said, we'll probably be asking you again, how do you think the chairman or Ade should have handled this matter? So Ade obviously did not have enough emotional intelligence required for the role he was occupying at that time. So what was he trying to do? Number one, he was trying to protect the company registration of charges in favor of that bank, debentures, legal mortgages. They wanted to be able to sign those documents, to be able to file them and secure the bank. That was his intention. However, what was the chairman's concern? Remember, the last part talked about the chairman, the last part of slide 1 talked about the chairman being close to Ade's former boss. They were even from the same club. They were former schoolmates, so they were quite close. And also the chairman was saying recovering from the shock of what had just transpired with CBN. So Ade didn't understand all these things. His emotional intelligence could not carry those things, could not appreciate them, could not understand it. So what was chairman's concern? Chairman was now protecting the interests and relationship of people he knew. So in the chairman's mind, who is this little upstart, this little nitwit or rat that wants to now take over a signatory? Where is God? When did he even start work? When did he leave school? Why is he so ambitious? Why is he trying to take over from his bosses? So that's what the chairman was thinking about. And that goes back to loyalty, to relationships. Okay, so chairman was not thinking about the bank at all at that time. He was thinking about how this young man was trying to step into the shoes of his bosses. Now, what did that do? It led to the chairman calling the incoming MD to say, this young man heading that division is still too young for that role. Get somebody, okay, to supervise him. And so Ade that already became the head of department now to start reporting to somebody because of how the chairman interpreted it. And that's the consequence of not having the emotional intelligence, okay, the understanding of that life is beyond just the papers in front of you. Life is beyond just black and white. There are other considerations you have to take into there are other consequences of your action and other things you have to consider in any step that you need to take. And the consequence was Ade that already became HOD, now became deputy HOD again. So in this life, nothing is ever as it seems. It may look so on the surface, but underneath, there are other factors and considerations that you may not be aware of, given your own exposure and experience. And that's what I wanted to start with so that I can launch into this discussion this afternoon. So don't forget, our title is Corporate and Societal Ethics and Governance. And so we can now start giving that background and now start looking at definitions. So when we talk about corporate ethics, we are actually talking about moral principles. So I know there are legal expectations and principles around corporate ethics. However, in my own experience, I've seen that beyond the legal expectations and obligations, the moral aspect is the first and foremost. Because if there is no readiness, if the board, the people in authority are not willing, there's no willingness to abide by this thing, the letter of the law will be followed at every time and the spirit of that law will be ignored. So corporate ethics is just the moral principles, policies, and values that govern the way companies and even individuals engage in business. And like I said, it's beyond the legal requirements. Legal requirements are just there. Everybody says in black and white, but do we practicalize it? Do we go around it? Is it just a poster that we look at in the office, or is it something that we actually live by? And that goes to culture, that goes to leadership. And so for me, it's just beyond the legal aspect. CAC can give anything, corporate governance code can contain anything. But what is our own culture? What are our values within the system? And that's what drives the ethical nature of the business. So ethics also refers to the business policy that we put in place. And it involves controversial subjects, as you will see when we start going into the webinar proper. People are very, very sensitive around these things. It whips up emotions when you discuss ethical issues. In a Nigerian setting, the first thing you think about it, people tell you that in this company are founded, but this company has become a PLC. It's no longer a family business, but we are still stuck in the historical aspect of the business that I own this business, I founded this business. So it's a difficult thing. It's very controversial, very sensitive when you start talking about it. And so the issues that we now talk about when we are talking about ethics, we are talking about corporate governance, insider trading, bribery, discrimination, nepotism, just to mention a few of the things. If you've been in business for a while or work for a while, probably understand these things I'm talking about because they are very, very controversial matters. Social responsibility. How the operations of my company, okay, how is it affecting the community, the environment, the staff, okay? And these are things that you talk about in hushed tones in the market. Nobody wants to bail the cats, and that's a bit challenging. Now, I have a video in the link. It's because I refer to like 3 or 4 documents, codes, and maybe the karma in trying to bring out what is expected of us in terms of ethics. So if you are looking at the Nigerian Corporate Governance Code, that's 2018 Act, it tries to determine the expectation of the regulator about ethics. So Principle 25 of that code begins to talk about policies, mechanisms for monitoring insider trading, related party transactions. These are the ethical issues that arise when you're talking about ethics within a system, conflict of interest, corrupt activities, and how you mitigate the effects of those things and the abuses that people run around these things. Now, the code now goes further, that principle 24 and 25, it goes to now recommend like 12 ways by which you can actually mitigate or control ethical behavior within your system. Now, I will not bother to go to those 12 recommendations today because of our time, and probably this is not the forum to do that. But this link you are seeing on the screen, it was a video by one South African, Dr. Noel Koza. He was at one point the chairman of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. He also chairs a lot of companies. He's a lyricist, you know. He is an accomplished man. And he was talking about corporate ethics and then how people behave within systems and organizations. And what made it instrumental for me was that he mentioned the Nigerian environment. And what he said about Nigerian businessmen, I didn't particularly like it, but I couldn't actually contest it because if I'm honest with myself, it's almost yeah, it's almost correct. So don't let me say it's correct, it's almost correct. So I will try to play the video, and please I will pause after I play so that you can confirm to you that you can see and hear the video. Please just give me a minute, please. So could we hear the video?
No, sir.
You couldn't
Yes,
hear?
but no, we can't hear yet.
Well, can you see the video?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we
But you
can.
can't hear.
No.
Sorry, you can't hear, but you can see the video, but you can't hear it.
We can see the
Yes, sir.
video, but we can't hear it.
Oh gosh. Let's see, what do I do now? Sorry, my age group always try to struggle with um okay, I will see maybe towards the end, I will come back to it, but so that we are not delayed. But it's in the link, so if you get the slides, you probably see the video. However, what Dr. Koza, what he emphasized in this video about Nigerian businessmen is that we have all the structures in place. But I don't know, Ekunda, can you play it from
Yes.
your side? Is it possible?
Okay. I would try.
Okay, so just let me know. I will try and explain what he was saying, but in the next 1 minute or so, if you're able to play it, let me know. I will just let me stop sharing my screen. So if you're able to play it. Okay, so what Dr. Koza was trying to explain in that video is that he has dealt with businessmen all over Africa. Now, he emphasized Ghana, he emphasized Nigeria, he emphasized Limpopo, some companies in East Africa. And what he said was that with the Nigerian businessman, we seem to focus more on value accretion, but we disregard the ethics around the value that we are creating. So we are more interested in the company making money than the company being ethical. When they said that, my heart actually sank because if I look at experience, if I look at discussions, if I look at what I read in papers and all that, so Nigerian companies actually make a lot of money. Okay, there's value accretion, there's growth. But when it comes to ethics, you can't just, you always hear one news or the other about what has happened, what somebody has done, and all that and all that. And you begin to ask yourself, really, that so all this money we are making, is there an end to it? What are the considerations you have put into that money? Ekona, any
Yes.
progress?
There's sound. So let me share my screen, and then we
Okay,
can see
okay,
if
that's
yes.
fine.
Can you hear, sir? Can you hear the sound? Is there audio?
No, I can't.
Wow.
Okay, I think we should go on. Maybe somebody will help us before we end the webinar so that we can hear. So it's not so bad. So you are not better than me, Jerry. I'm not too old school. I was punishing and killing myself that I couldn't play it. Uh, I tried it earlier and they play. So I'm so surprised that it's not playing. Okay, let me go back to sharing my screen. Okay, so that's what Dr. Koza said about Nigerian businessmen, that our focus is basically on value creation, not on ethics. And that got me thinking, really, if our focus is on value creation, how do we actually sustain that business for the long run? Because a leader can create value for a generation, and after that, what happens to those companies? That may probably explain why we have few 100-year companies in Nigeria. We just have companies that will try for 30, 35 years, 40, and then the promoter goes, and then everything tanks. So hopefully we are able to take that video. So this is what the corporate governance code has said about ethics, just to explain what ethics means. And then you now go to who is responsible for ethics within the system. And that really is the remit of the board of directors. It's not the remit of management. A lot of people make that mistake. We think that establishment of principles and policies that are ethical is what management should do. No, management is just a delegate. If by the codes, by the acts, by various laws that you will check, the responsibility for the ethical environment of a company is that of the board of directors, not even shareholders. Shareholders are stakeholders, they can insist, but the people that drive the ethics within the system, ethical behavior that people will say is above board, is basically the board of directors of the company. So how do they do that? Because board of directors they don't run the business, they supervise the business. How do they now achieve that? So what do? They create rules, policies, structures that help them to execute and monitor ethical behavior. If they monitor the rules, how do they get report on infractions? How do they sanction those infringements? Okay. And if possible, when do they review? So what they do is create all the structures around this area. And that's what they do. So, but because they are not in the running of the business, they come maximum 5 times a year, every quarter, maybe one extra meeting. So 5 times a year cannot really supervise. And so what they do is they will delegate that responsibility to the person we know as the managing director. So delegate that responsibility. However, they delegate, but they remain ultimately responsible for that, for the ethics of the environment. And so that's why when anything happens in the company, you see EFCC saying they want to see the chairman of the company, they want to see the board of directors. If you have been involved in a bank failure before, they don't just arrest the MD, they arrest the entire board of directors. Why are they doing that? Because the ultimate responsibility for the safety of the bank rests on the board of directors, not on the managing director. Managing director is just a delegate. And so it behoves on the board not just to assume that it's been done, they need to monitor that it's being done. They need to check, they need to review on an ongoing basis that this company remains the ethical environment that they want it to be. Because when the chips are down, the responsibility is theirs, not that of the MD. I hope I will let that, if we have directors on the call, a lot of directors just read the executive summary when you present documents to them. They don't look at details. Executive summary is what somebody distilled from the details. That is his own opinion. Okay, and how he wants the meeting to pan out. But if you look at the details, you may have a different view to that executive summary. But a lot of directors just focus on the executive summary and ignore the details of the report in front of them. And management will not be wrong because the report has been provided to you. They give a summary based on their own understanding. And if you choose to rely on their understanding, well, the report is before you. You are the one that didn't read it. So we said they will create the rules, they will create structures, they will monitor that those rules are being obeyed, they will ensure that infractions are reported, sanction failures and all that. So how do they do this? How do they do this? So once they delegate those responsibilities to management, what happens? So the executive management, that is the MD, led by the MD, that's the direct delegate to the board of directors. Then you have the company secretariat. And company secretariat, what do they do? Company secretariat gives education, helps directors understand what their responsibilities are. Just pardon the overflow on this second point. And then it's education and guidance. Let directors know what their responsibilities are, what the code expects from them, what the law expects from them, and guides them what to do. So those policies that we put in place and all that. And what does internal audit do? Internal audit monitors compliance and reports. So there is a measure that internal control does, maybe on a daily basis or weekly basis, but internal audit comes periodically to check that those things are being done. Reports on either compliance or infractions. Now, there's also risk management, and then they identify those ethical issues and then create mitigation around it. Now, how do this now work? The company secretary, the internal auditor, the chief risk officer, they are appointees of the board. The idea is that to give them some measure of independence and to enable them freely operate without hindrance or suppression, they should have a link to the board. You will see that as we go on in the webinar. So I will now refer to the codes. And the first one I'm looking at, I mentioned one before, is the Nigerian Code of Nigerian Corporate Governance Code 2018 Act. And I picked just two principles out of the 28 that we have to explain ethics. Now, so principle 24 talks about a board being committed to professional business and ethical standards, which means your operations must be ethical. Okay, you must do business in a way that external people, independent people look at it and say you are above board. Okay, you are above board. And then you are expected to review those codes and what you put in place periodically to ensure that it is working, And so also the board has the responsibility for monitoring adherence. Now, principle 25 now talks about you establishing those codes. Now, if you look at the corporate governance code, it actually prescribes the policies that you must put in place. For example, against insider trading, conflict of interest, corrupt practices, gifts, receipt of gifts, giving of gifts, who to do business with, whether a company should join a political party, all those things are listed in the code. And then if you have those things in place and you practice them, the expectation is that you have a good ethical environment. Note that I underlined you practice them, not that you have it in place. Because you can have it in place and actually ignore them. You can have it in place and actually say, well, is this just for regulators to come and tick the box? You have the corporate governance code. I said, you have code of conduct, you give it to them. You have a conflict of interest for directors, you provide it. But you have all those documents, but are those documents being complied with? That is the question. Are those documents being complied with? Now, so if I move from the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance and I move to the Companies and Allied Matters Act, two clauses in that Companies and Allied Matters Act, Section 305 and 306. So if we start with Section 305, it speaks to the fiduciary relationship that a director has with the company. It just says that the director is in a special position, and what he must do every time must be in the best interest of the company, not in his own best interest, not in the interest of people that are appointed if he's representing a stakeholder, in the interest of the company at all times. So if you look at subsection 1 to 7, there are various aspects, reference to various aspects, just to establish that what the director must do every time must be in the interest of the company, not in self-interest, not in the interest of other stakeholders. Now, to drive home that point, subsection 8 now says that even if the director is no longer in the company, or even if they are now reaching an agreement between the company and the director that whatever I do, I will not be liable for it. This section is saying that that contract is void because you will still be held liable, for whatever you have done. If it's not in accordance with fiduciary expectations for that company, you will still be held liable for it. So what we are saying is that your fiduciary role compels you to always act in the best interest of the company, in the best, at all times, in whatever you do, in the best interest of the company. Now, Section 306 now begins to talk about conflict of interest, making profits using the instrumentalities of your office or of your role, okay? Going under the table to get things that ordinarily you would not have gotten, using the information of the company to profit on the stock exchange. So you know the company is going to go into a new line and that will bring more revenue. So before they announce that we are going to a new line, okay, you quickly buy shares of that company using the information that you have so that you know that the shares are 5 naira now. By the time they announce that we're taking over this company and then we are going to be getting additional revenue, stakeholders, the investing public want to put money in that company and that affects the share price. And so before that happens, you actually buy 1 or 2 million more shares at 2 naira. And when they announce the shares goes to 10 naira, then you now sell off and make 8 naira or 7 naira on it. And you are on the board, you are there. So you are making secret profits on the company. So all those things are ethical issues. And Section 306 is saying that a director must not behave that way. In fact, sub 6 of that section says that if it is found that you are making secret profit on the company, you are liable to refund all that money. Now, if you look at a combination of 305 and 306, what it is saying is that you must be transparent, you are accountable to the company, and you must always act in the best interest of the company. So I've mentioned two codes now, the Corporate Company and Allied Matters Act and the Corporate Governance Code. So let's move further. Now, so I also, because I'm sure maybe a lot of bankers are here, the Corporate Governance Code for banks, Corporate Governance Guideline for banks, I think I only refer to Section 21 here. And that is to say that the CBN expects that banks should establish a code of business conduct and ethics, okay? And disclose in that code information that will make it enhance confidence, okay, and make people believe that this bank has integrity. If I take a poll on this webinar to say, ask that, do you think Nigerian banks are ethical? I'm almost sure what I will get. Somebody will say they debited me for, and I can even say that I'm smiling already. Somebody will say they debited me for SMS chat that I can't recall that I have. Somebody will say they debited me for a card that I do not use, all sorts of things. So those fees are the legal fees. So they're entitled to take such fees. However, you've taken it beyond the legal. You're asking yourself that is it proper for them to be doing this? What have they done for me that are taking all these fees? So the idea is it goes beyond your legal obligations. And we are not going to the moral aspect. Are people saying that you are doing the best that you can do? Are people saying that you are doing the best that you can do? Now, it also goes beyond just putting those laws in place. The responsibility of people that are put in charge to ensure that those things happen, are they doing it? Are they accountable, okay, for what they are doing? Are they reporting those issues? Those things are very important, okay? And then the code expects that the bank will review those policies at least once every 3 years. So if I go to the Code of Conduct of Public Stock Companies, that is for SEC, Section 36 thereof also establishes that companies regulated by SEC or PLCs are expected to have a code of business conduct. And that code of business conduct should be implemented as part of their corporate governance. So there's no way you can have corporate governance, any document that will make sense, actually, without okay, having ethics or whatever, okay, ethics or whatever embedded in those codes. It won't happen. So if you remove ethics from corporate governance, an essential part of corporate governance is no longer available. It is lost. And that can happen. Now, so if I look at all the 4 codes that I've spoken about, all the 4 put together, there are 5 obligations that come out from all those codes and the law, even CAMA. The first one is that there must be creation of policies. The second one is that you have to create structures, okay? You have to report on those activities and then there is a place for sanction, and then review. So those 5 points actually come from a combination of everything I have said since we started this webinar, and we're going to be looking at it one by one. I don't know if I should leave questions or comments to the end of the webinar, or I can take few now, if that is, so that people don't lose their train of thoughts. I don't know which one works.
So I think they can drop questions in the chat room. I will note them down, and then at the end
Okay.
of the session, we'll do a Q&A session. Yeah, to
That's
ask
fine.
questions.
That's fine. So those 5 elements just come to the fore from everything we have looked at in terms of the codes and the acts that we've reviewed so far. You have to create those policies. You have to create structures to execute those policies. And you have to monitor that implementation of those structures and policies. And then you have to supervise them, that they are complying. You have to audit those activities to be sure that they are in line. And then reporting, you have to be sure those things are in place. And then sanction non-compliance, and then there'll be a review once every 3 years. So if we now go to creation of the policies, the first one is that directors will have to provide a framework for governance, ethics, and transparency. The first one that you have to put in place is the corporate governance code. And what does that one have? Corporate governance code will define who the chairman of the board is, the directors, their powers, expectations, issues that should come to the board, approval limits for management. All those governance issues will be in place. Now, it will talk about the conduct of directors, it will talk about conflict of interest, it will talk about secret profit, what is considered secret profits. It will talk about the grievance process. It will talk about directors, resignation, retirement, and when directors can be sacked. Now, the idea is that there's a framework that governs the activities of that company. And so in that corporate governance framework, you are left without a doubt about what this company is about, what the responsibilities and powers of directors are, and what is punishable and how grievance is addressed. Now, in the code of conduct, which is basically attached to the corporate governance code, is probably an appendix that all directors sign annually, okay? And then you put the ethics, how they declare their interests, how they vote when they have interest, how they step aside, recuse themselves when they're interested in the matter, how they must disclose ahead of time, even before that matter is disclosed, issues of insider trading, okay, all those will be in place. Conflict of interest, gifts and hospitality, whistleblowing, how you make secret profit. All those things you must create policies for, because where there is no law, you cannot err. It's only when there is a law that you can say you have infringed that law. Now, if you don't have this law, I was in a webinar, I think last week or so, and somebody from NFIU was speaking to us, and he was saying that it is punishable under the MLPA, that's the Money Laundering Act, that if they come in and they ask for these structures and you do not have them, you don't have to have infringed any policy. The fact that you don't have these structures alone is punishable, and it's under that law. So if they ask for your code of conduct policy you don't have, they ask for your conflict of interest policy you don't have, that one is sanctionable even before they start talking about whether you've done it or not. So it's important that these things are in place. Now, the last thing I want to talk about on this slide is the clawback provisions. Clawback. Clawback basically focuses on management. Now, if you have worked in an investment banking environment before, which are very aggressive people in terms of value accretion, value delivery and all that. So, and then they are paid heavily in terms of bonuses and all that. And the way most of these companies recognize income is accrual method, which means they close a transaction before the customer pays, they recognize that income. So what does that do? If for any reason the income does not come in till the end of the year and it transcends to the following year, they collect bonus based on the accrual method. And when they collected bonus on the accrual method, okay, whether that money comes in or not, if it's not monitored, it means that the company has paid out of shareholders' funds for income that was not received by that company. So what does clawback do? Clawback actually says if you have received money you shouldn't have received, then we can go back. It would prescribe a number of years, maybe 1 or 2 years. We can go back 1 or 2 years or 3 years to say the bonus that you collected for the income that didn't come into the company, you will refund it. You will refund it. When that happens, managers are more careful about pushing for recognition of income. When they know that 2-3 years down the line, the money that they collected and forgotten about, they can be asked to repay it. It just controls behavior because people can be ingenious in the way they recognize income. It just controls behavior when they know that. So, and it's a particular, even the corporate governance code talks about clawback. You need to put that in your documentation somewhere so that people behave properly and income is not unreasonably taken from the business. So these are some of the policies that you must establish. The idea here is that you must create policies to guide the ethics of the environment. It's extremely, extremely important. Now, we talk about structures. Now, structures are the things you must put in place to execute your policies. So, for example, I mentioned earlier that the company secretary, the chief risk officer, the internal auditor are officers of the board because the board has an overview of their role. In most places, the board also has an input into how they are appraised so that there's no fear that if I do my work, I'll be discriminated against within the company, at least for ethical companies. Let me put that in inverted comma. So the structure to put in place is that the board must have input into the appointment of these officers. I know for the company secretary, the board appoints the company secretary. So the company secretary is an appointee of the board by statute. So the internal auditor also is maybe not an appointee of the board, but the board audit committee is involved in the appointment of the internal auditor. For the chief risk officer, the board risk committee is involved in the appointment and the appraisal of the risk officer, chief risk officer. So the idea is that these people have a line of sight to the board. And so they're able to do their work better. They're able to declare, they're able to make disclosures to the board wherever it is required. So these reporting structures also, apart from the internal control committee, these reporting structures, there's a reporting structure to management, there's a reporting structure to the board, and then there's a reporting structure to the regulators. This is not the kind of forum where you begin to say you have 2 people reporting to another boss. The important thing to note is that there will be structures that will be reported, something like a management risk committee on risk matters to executive management, okay, internal auditor reporting to the executive management, and then though there must be also lines of reporting to the board risk management committee, to the board audit committee, and then to the regulator so that they have line of sight. And in those reports, we'll be talking about all those policies, whether they're in place, whether they are sufficient, whether you are monitoring, whether those structures are in whistleblowing, for example, whether they are in place. All those reports will be showing all these things. There's been a whistleblowing within the quarter since the last time the board met. You will report those things. That mechanism is also important. Do you have a website where stakeholders can report anonymously? Is that available? Instances where you have a whistleblowing, somebody in charge of whistleblowing to harvest whistleblowing, complaints, whistleblowing, and all that. And the person that is harvesting is the person that has actually caused the problem. How do you now report yourself to the perpetrator? Now, what are the structures like? Are those structures impartial, or are those structures colored in a way that nobody will approach that person? So on your website, you have a whistleblowing link on that website. Is it anonymous? Are people able to make calls? Your market and corporate communication, what are they saying about all these things? In that complaints management from HCM, HR to internal audit, what is it like? Are people comfortable with making such things? If you want to test your system, okay, get an external person to ask about trust and compare the report from that external person to the report that your HCM sends out. There's always a world of difference. HCM will always come back to say everything is fine. It is glorious. You scored 95%, 98%. But by the time an external person does that same survey, probably drops to like 40-50%. What is happening is because people are not comfortable with those structures in place. So it is important to put structures that people are comfortable with and allows people, okay, to actually make those complaints, make those disclosures without fear of discrimination or fear of oppression. So those structures are the responsibility of the board and they need to be put in place. Now, reporting is two ways: external regulators and stakeholders, and internal management and the board. And who are the people that report? Company secretary, risk management, internal audit, internal control, compliance. They all report to the board and the sector regulator where applicable. So the heads or departments of these departments are appraised by the board, or at least they have input into their appraisal, and they are appointed by the board to foster independence. So I will move from here to the sanctions. So the sanctions internally are the disciplinary process. The disciplinary committee, the grievance procedure, and the grievance manual that shows everybody what the sanction for each offense is and what is sanctionable within the company. Everybody should have access to those things. It should not be in somebody's head to determine that what you have done is unethical. It should be in a policy that everybody sees that if I take a gift of more than 1,000 naira or 50,000 naira, what I've done is unethical. It can't be in your head. Somebody takes 1 million because it's your friend. It's okay because it's a big boy. What is 1 million naira to him anyway? And then somebody else takes 1 million. You say, nah, your salary is 200,000. If you see 1 million, won't you faint? And because of that, we penalize that person. So those are structures that should not happen. So there should be a structure, a policy in place that everybody must have access to, and which means the same response, and you address issues that are similar in the same way. It cannot be segregated based on who that person is. It can't be based on personalities. It must be based on a policy, and that's important. Now, the external sanctions are also there. Regulatory sanction. I mentioned one that somebody from NFIU mentioned. They're not having those structures in place is sanctionable. Okay, and so regulatory sanction for infringement of those policies. Those are the sanctions that we have now. What the Financial Reporting Council has now done is that for every regulatory sanction, you have to put it in your financial reports. And that has actually put some form of control, in the way we behave. Because nobody wants, because you don't know, investors come in, stakeholders, but everybody sees your financial reports. They don't want to see that you got a sanction because you don't have a code of corporate governance. Nobody likes that. You don't have a code of conduct for your officers. That's a very, very embarrassing sanction to have in your financial reports. Or you are not reporting on, if you are a financial institution, you are not doing KYC reporting. Nobody wants to see that. And so the directive that will be in your annual report has actually tempered a bit how and moderated how people behave. Now, the review is talking about looking at your policies and making amendments where necessary to align with changing your business strategy and outlook, and also changing in regulation, so that if there are issues that you need to address, you address them immediately. So how do you now do the review? If your auditors come in once a year to review, that's an audit, that's a review. There's an internal review that is done by internal audits, compliance, about codes, practices, and procedures. There's also management reviews that happens within the system. Okay, you activate that within your system. Another way you can review whether your policies are in line is the board review that you do through external parties. They come in, check that the policies are within your company comply with the expectations of regulation. So external people will come at the end of the year, look at your board practices, and then they can give a decision, okay, an assessment of where you are within your governance growth. Also, external review also includes an external audit that external auditors come in to do once in a while. Okay, I think I'm making good with time. I hope I'm making good with time.
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay, great. So part of what I was asked to do is to look at the social ethics And I actually find this interesting because a lot of us, like Dr. Koza said, focus on profits, value accretion. Not many of us actually focus on um, ethical ethical practice. Um, I've always joked about something with a lot of my friends that are in financial circles that do investment banking. When environmental and social governance started and it became a buzz thing for everybody, I asked one of my friends that is into asset management that if an oil company that just filled gallons of crude oil into the ocean comes to you and says, take 50 billion naira separation fund of my staff and manage it, will you say no because your company spilled oil on the ocean is unethical for us and you won't take that money to my? He said, Alawusa, is something wrong with you? I said, but your company is ethical, you are ethical. Environmental and social governance is important to you. He said, I will report it that I collected money and they spilled all, but I will report it. So what we're saying is that don't do business with them. Not that we say, go and stay in one place, or this your own ethical, whatever is more than my own. That's the problem. In more developed countries abroad, that may actually stop it from doing business with that company. It may not activists to go and shout in front of that company. So things happen. And so people moderate behavior based on what their experience will be if they infringe it. But we are not there yet. We are not there yet. So the social ethics is talking about how your operations, how your activities impact your staff, how it impacts your environment, how it impacts your stakeholders. That's what social ethics is talking about. Are people able to say that looking at this company and based on my interaction and business with them, they are above board? And that's a question that all of us must answer. Can we say on a table that the way I run my business, the way I run my team, I'm socially ethical? With an independent third party looking at what I'm doing, actually say that what I'm doing is above board?
Hello, Mr. Alawusa.
Yes.
You have referenced Dr. Koza quite a number of times. So I'm
Yes.
thinking, can we
That's the
try and
video.
play the video? Yeah, can we try and play it again? So just
Okay.
try from these hands and just to try so that
From my side or from Ekundayo?
I'll try from here. Then if
Okay, that's
I will
fine.
try once more. And then we'll
That's fine.
just go around just to be sure.
I've stopped sharing now.
Okay.
That sounds still.
Is that Zoom?
Is that sound now? Can you hear any sound?
I still cannot.
No, ma'am.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay.
Maybe the IT guys, when we start taking question and answer, maybe the IT guys can help us. I don't know what happened. If I play from here, I can hear. I don't know.
Okay. At least we've
I'm
tried.
thinking it's probably Zoom's functionality, not allowing us to play from another software or something like that.
Okay, so we said
Okay, let me start sharing again.
Oh.
Okay, so I was talking about social ethics, and I'm saying that the determinant to ask ourselves whether we are doing what is right is if somebody comes in from outside, somebody external comes in to view what we are doing, will they say, will their conclusion be that we are doing what is right, both legally and morally. You know, law and morals are two different things. You say legally and morally, they are doing what is right. So how does your company interact with internal and internal stakeholders to promote harmonious coexistence? Do you just say it is my rights and nobody has a say in this matter because it is your right? Or do you consider how what I'm doing is going to affect others? So because you have a land that spans maybe 4 acres, you fence everything. Meanwhile, immediately you fence that land, some people are living behind your company that have to now go like 4 or 5 streets away to get to their house. When if we had just left a small part of that land open, they could have accessed their house. But you are saying, it's my land. Why do I need to open them? If they want to, they should go and buy land now. So what you have done is right, is your land, but are you looking at how taking over your land has affected the lives of people? So they now have to maybe drive around or walk around for like 1 hour before they get to their house. Meanwhile, if you had just done that, they will access their house. Or you are a very prosperous company, and you could have just built a bridge just after your building so that people can access a whole new environment. I will say, am I Lagos State government? Am I not paying tax? So what we've done is legal, but really you could have impacted the environment the most. So social ethics is talking about how you impact your environment, how you impact your society. You emphasize fair treatment, okay? Positive contribution, social well-being. And that's what we are talking about here. Okay, but the interesting thing is that beyond profits, people are now looking at how your activities are affecting the environment, affecting governance, affecting the social fabric of where you operate. You know, in the past, we just did CSR, but it's going beyond that. I recall that we had a session with some young professionals. So we have this what we call ARM labs, where you look at all sorts of innovators come in and then you assist them. And one of the young men stood up. I was in that meeting and he said, yes, you are going to help me and all that. That what is your stand about ESG and what have you done? Somebody that I was going to invest in asking me that before he takes my money, what is my stand on ESG? I've never seen that before. I've never had that before. That kind of question. People are willing to take my money. They are grateful to take my investment. But this one is saying, before I take your investment, because I know what I'm looking at, I know where this company is going, I know I'm going to be focusing and facing international investors in the course of this growth of this company. So I need to know that my first seed investor, what they've done for ESG. And we found that very interesting. We have to start saying we have policies on this, on that, this and practice just to explain what we're doing. So increasingly, people are getting more and more interested in ESG. In fact, if you have Gen Z as customers, you can't escape ESG. But a lot of us focus on the environmental part, that's the E part, and the governance part, and just abandon the S parts. This course, this training, or this webinar is actually drawing our attention to the fact that it's not E and G, it is ESG. We shouldn't jump the S part, look at the environment, look at the socials, and also look at the governance. And so this diagram you see on your screen is just trying to give a further breakdown of what social ethics is for internal and external stakeholders. So what we do well in Nigeria is number 4. We do number 4 well. That's the community engagement. That's where you do all the CSR. You go and build new schools. You build a bridge. You paint classroom. You give them books. Okay. You build a laboratory. You do all those more. And basically, because there's photo ops there, you can for the next 3 months say this is what the company is doing. Everybody clap for you. You do that a lot. However, and also number 3, because it's that customer that gives us money. So we focus on number 3 and 4. But look at number 1 and 2. And that's where we would like this number 1. Work-life balance. People in HR, they like that a lot. Work-life balance. Okay? Culture. Okay? Inclusive leadership. How do I develop my people? Train my people? Organizational fairness, 2 things that happened in the course of the week. One from a book I read, and the second one from an image that was going around social media circles about Charles Branson. I don't know whether you saw it. Charles Branson visited a branch, Virgin Atlantic, and he met a staff sleeping on the couch. And he took a picture of the staff sleeping. He crashed beside the staff, and then they snapped a picture, and he posted that one of the value staff of Virgin Atlantic, okay, having served for so many hours in the day, quickly took a nap so that he can serve customers more and continue to give the first-rate customer service that we give to our staff. That's how I interpreted it. So if I had the chance, I would have asked, how will a Nigerian boss treat a staff that you met sleeping on the couch in the office? In fact, I've seen grievance procedure that says sleeping in the office is an offense before. So if sleeping in the office is an offense, and then somebody is taking a picture to say that this is a staff that has worked hard because of the day, taking a short nap so that he can continue to give first-rate service. So it's a matter of perspective. And that's the way he looked at it. But I don't think a lot of us look at it that way. Now, another one is a book I read, Bully Market. Bully Market, as B-U-L-L-Y, Bully Market. And that book was talking about a very influential asset management firm in the United States. It's a firm that everybody wants to go to. Now, I think it's Jamie Higgins, one of their managing directors. She rose to the top position. And in that Bully Market, she wrote about her experience in that company. And I don't think I want any of my children to work in that company, despite the fact that they make a lot of money. She said she was making average of $100,000 a year in bonuses, not salary, every year. And then she got to a point that she was making over $1 million every year when they share bonuses. However, she went to work terrified. She went to work afraid. She was oppressed at work. And that book was so powerful that that company had to come out that what she wrote in that book does not represent them because of the reaction that people had when they read the book. They were forced to come out to deny. But the interesting thing is that they came to deny, but they did not sue her for defamation. They denied that that's not their system. I would have expected that they would now go to court to say they are suing her for defamation. They did not sue her for defamation. They just came out to deny and say, put out a disclaimer that does not represent us. Maybe it's in our imagination, but they didn't sue her. But what that book has shown me is that in the annals of where you put all this glamorous branding and all that, inwardly, what's the social impact on the life of our workforce? Is there diversity? Is there equity? Are people treated the same way? Or based on you are the founder's son, you bought a customer that brings a lot of millions, so you are a special breed. What is applicable to you does not apply to everybody else. Is the well-being of people. How do we look at it? So it's important. So just give those two examples just to give us perspective. A boss meeting somebody sleeping on the couch, how they interpreted it, the Bully Market. A lot of us will struggle to go into that company because it's a global brand, very, very influential asset management company. But look at how one insider described it. Now, the supply chain, people that we work with, are contractors, are suppliers, people that we work with. We are looking for the person that will give us the cheapest delivery. Meanwhile, they use child labor in those services. Do we have costs that they must fill to comply with our own social, ethical standards? Are there, in onboarding those contractors and suppliers, are there steps that they must comply with to assure us that they are above board in terms of social ethics? Do they pay their staff? Are all their staff outsourced? Okay, and what they pay their practice overtime? Do they pay people for those overtime? These are questions that we should ask, because it should not just be that we are doing it. It should be seen to have been done the best way that it can be done. Like I said, the third and fourth are done very well in Nigeria. Customer is king, we treat customers well. Community, we do that because of CSR and photo ops and to look good. But this number one and number two are the things that we totally ignore, and they are an integral part of social ethics. So the role of companies in shaping social ethics now is just a progression. You check Do we have colleagues, not just us, people that we interact with in our daily work environment, suppliers, contractors, third parties, whoever are we trying to find out? And that is the most complete and feel and give us confirmation that these things are happening. And do we escalate these risks that we have seen? Do we engage stakeholders? Apart from AGM, can they go to our website and see what we are doing? Are we transparent? Are we driving sustainable innovation? Okay. Are we supporting initiatives that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion? It used to be financial inclusion in those days, people that don't have bank accounts. What is our company doing about that? People around us are not going to school. What part of our income are we applying to that? Are we, in fact, not many companies even have a succession policy. Not many companies have it to say, okay, when the MD lives in 5 or 7 or 8 years, who takes over? Is somebody being groomed? On the contrary, the MD eliminates everyone that can be competition around him. Just eliminates everybody. So you have MD there, and the first line after MD, none of them can become MD. Just so that it can be important. Now, we are looking at MD. All of us can point at MD. In our own department as HOD, if they say, give me your successor, can your successor take over? So, because a lot of boys like pointing fingers, it is Tinubu, it is Buhari, but we are the ones that will face one way on Lagos roads and turn where we are not supposed to turn. We are the ones that will jump queue. Is it Buhari jumping queue or Tinubu? So, it just shows that we are just waiting for our own turn to get there. And when we get there, we'll be worse than the incumbent that left. Okay, we are saying that this Oga is wicked, but in your own small corner as HOD, when you are saying MD is wicked, are you saying that you call somebody, a married woman, at 8 p.m. on Saturday, and you say, I must get it before I sleep? Because maybe you are not married yet. You don't have the kind of pressure that she has, but I must get it before I sleep this night. You are not considering her. It's even a Saturday. Do you even care about her well-being? Do you care what plans that she has made? You are saying, you live in Ajambadi. I pay you enough money to live in Yaba. I don't care where you live. Be in the office by 6 a.m. for that meeting. Are we thinking about it? But you could have done this meeting online. But no, you must see everybody's face so that when you are shouting at them, you will see their reaction. And that makes you an important fellow. You nod your head. I'm their Oga. They must understand that. So all these things, it may look far out, but until we start beaming torchlight to ourselves, we may not see ourselves. The idea, what I'm saying is, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror and determine whether what you like, you like what you see, or you don't like what you see. And that's probably a summary for the social ethics part. Now, I think I'll be rounding up now. So reality, and we've talked about all these things, but what is the Nigerian reality? What's the Nigerian reality? What I have found out in the last 25, 30 years of working, not only from where I have, those places that I've worked, experience interacting with people, interacting with other companies and all that, I found that the reality and factors that militate against governance and ethics are very straightforward. And all of us will probably have experienced it one way or the other in our working career. The ownership mentality and impunity. It is my company. I can do whatever I want here. If you don't like it, please leave. Please leave. Okay? It is the way I want it. And then if you don't like it, please, by all means, leave. Okay? Then succession planning. Family over competence. I don't know whether you've seen that before. We all know that this person cannot do it. But because he is related to the founder or whatever, this is the person that must take over. In fact, the Yorubas even have a saying for it. Thank God, Gbemi is always translating Yoruba proverbs to English language. I've not seen that for a while. Gbemi always translating Yoruba to English language. You cannot say because the hips of your daughter is too big, you now take the costly piece and go and put on the hip of another daughter, or another person's daughter. You must look for your own daughter. Whether it fits or not, you will place it there. And so that's the way that is interpreted. Succession planning, must your son or your daughter be MD of that company when you know that you want the company down? Or make everybody's life miserable in that company? Must your daughter be, can your daughter be a director to monitor what is happening? But in this environment, it's succession planning, it's family over competence. Then nepotism, this person came from my village. He related to my, you came for, so, you are my in-law. Okay, come in and sit down. Without regards to how this person will affect my system, affect my culture, affect my environment, it must just be there. And then the quality of directors we have also matters a lot. Are these directors waiting for certain allowance before they can live their life for directors' fees? If you have such directors on your board, they can't check anything, because whatever the MD says is always right, because what they're there for is just to collect certain allowance and directors' fees. And apart from that, they may not even need your director's fee. They may be well off, they may be affluent. However, it's a boys' club, which means, let me go to Ade's farm, sit down. Ade's friends, bring his friends from a Kogi club. There is board of directors. Whatever he does, they will say, no, Ade must have a reason for doing it. The conflict or conflict, what conflict? He owns the company now. What's the conflict? Insider trading, what do you expect him to do? He must make money now. So they justify everything that Ade is doing because they are Ade's friends. It's a boys' club. You rub my back, I rub your back. So you allow me to do whatever I want to do. I also give you 1 or 2 contracts to execute in the company. Everybody is happy. The only unhappy people are the stakeholders and the staff of the company. The culture of silence and victimization, people just keep quiet, and as long as it's not affecting me, it's not a big deal. It's a cycle, or it turns. It will get to you one of these days, okay? And then we grievance structures and regulation. You are not very comfortable accessing those structures because you are not sure anything will happen. So you just tell yourself, if I report it, so what will happen? In fact, some bosses will even tell you that if you like, go and report, nothing will happen. They will tell you ahead of time before your reports. So don't even bother. And it just makes everybody miserable. In that kind of environment, ethics cannot work. Governance cannot work because everybody is just minding their business. As long as it's not my table, it's not my concern, okay? And then ingenuity of operators, we find a way to go around regulation. Let me give you an example. Many years ago, a bank bought an aircraft. Now, when they bought that aircraft, CBN queried them and asked them to explain why they bought the aircraft without CBN approval. So they were stuck. And as they were deliberating, one young man said, why are we even deliberating? This aircraft is just a chattel, a vehicle, like buying a car. Forget the cost. It's like buying a car. So if you buy a car, we're going to get approval of CBN to buy a car. What we need approval of CBN for is when we are establishing a new branch. Okay, and so if this is not a branch, what CBN is looking at right now is the cost of that aircraft. We should tell them that it is a chattel, a vehicle, and we are not obliged, okay, or expected to seek your approval to buy a vehicle. And that was how they responded to CBN, and CBN could not say anything. Now, you and I know that the letter of that law, okay, was complied with. But the spirit of that law is that CBN should be involved or should have supervisory have oversight over any expense that is substantial that they want to make. That is the spirit of the law. And because of ingenuity, they were able to go around that spirit of the law. So a lot of operators go around the spirit of the law. We pay people extra money when they can evade the law. Those are the high flyers, those are the sharp people that can bend it a bit. It's not broken, but they bend it a bit and then we don't get sanctioned. So we actually escape the spirit of the law. And then the last one, which is a reality for us, is absence of societal safety nets. If people don't have safety nets, they will take any rubbish to survive. Environments where they know that even if they don't work for like 1 or 2 months, they will not die. They will get something. They will live. They are not ready to take the nonsense that we receive, accept around there. So because there are no social safety nets, it allows people to oppress us a lot. So the solution lies in you and me, how we are going to uphold ethics and governance. We have to speak up. And then, like I said initially, refuse to become when you arrive. A lot of us complain now because we are not in authority. By the time we get to the authority, we'll probably be worse than people we are complaining about. So we are just waiting for our time. So refuse to become when you arrive. Let ethics, let your own culture be different. Let people say that this person is different. Now, any hope, reality, any hope. So my first point is that please appoint really independent directors, not boys club. So if you look at the definition of independent director is somebody that has minimal interest in the company, has not worked with the company for a while, has not taken some benefit above the threshold from the company, is not connected to the promoters in any way, so it's defined in the law, and that will qualify as independent director. However, you get Ade's junior brother or Ade's friend's junior brother. So, Dayo, come and sit on my board. You label him independent director. He qualifies in the letter of that law as an independent director, but really, is he independent? Would that person say, Bodade, what you are saying is wrong? Bro? No, you won't say Bodade. Would you rather say, Bodade, you killed them at the meeting today? Oh, God. You have not changed since you were leading us to play football in those days. Oh, and that is will learn how, boy, you get it. And that's the independent director. Okay. Now, the second thing we must do is to now focus on stakeholder value, not shareholder value. What do I mean? Stakeholder means the community, means the staff, means the regulator. And you are acting in the best interest of those three groups, and also the sustainability of that company. How does this company endure beyond us into the next 50 and 100 years? So you are focused on how that company will endure, not on that your group will endure. So if sustainability, if your profit focus is going to affect sustainability, what I'm saying is that you will drop that profit focus for that period and choose sustainability. Well, we need to start doing that. Stakeholder focus as opposed to shareholder focus, because shareholder focus is profit. They want to make money now from their investment now, not in 10 years' time, now. But you are saying as a director, as the MD, you are focused on stakeholder interest, not just shareholder interest. So we should also strengthen the grievance structures, whistleblowing structure, okay, not just to satisfy regulatory expectations. Make those structures really structures that people can leverage without fear of discrimination or fear of oppression or sack. Okay, let it be things that people can do without being afraid of what will happen to them the next minute. The leadership tone is also important. What are we saying from the top? Not just what we are saying, what we are doing from the top. Our action, our behavior, what is it communicating to people? And that's important. Transparency is also important. Focus on trust building is important. And then work on impunity. Same rule application across board. I worked somewhere many years ago where I was made the acting chairman of the disciplinary committee. And the matter came to the committee that we deliberated upon. There was an allegation of oppression by junior staff against a much more senior staff. And that allegation came from two different departments, so similar transactions, but different personalities. But I knew one of them was the management boy. So in presenting to the executive committee, I presented the one that was management boy first. And they told me that, okay, and it's not this person, no, it's not like that. It's not like that. There must be some form of miscommunication somewhere. Okay, so we will give this person a warning. So my recommendation was a final warning, because there have been several instances where people didn't complain formally, but it had come to HR one way or the other. So finally, and they said, no, give another one, they will leave. And one of our star boys now is making money for the company. So just give the person a small caution that we don't like what has happened. So I said, fine, I put it down. So I presented the second case. Before I finished, the countenance of ESCO members had changed. Their facial expression shows that they were irritated. And the first thing the MD said was that, how could that happen within our system? We should sack this person. It was not such nonsense. How can he do that? I was looking at all of them. And so I asked for the final, they said, okay, because it's a first offender, we should suspend him for 2 weeks. So I said, no problem. I said, what I need to just draw their attention to is that we are going to communicate to HCM to suspend this person. However, the first case I presented is exactly the same. So we will apply the suspension to the first case. They said, no, suspension, no. The guy will leave. But I said, okay, how do we now handle it? If you give the first person caution, the second person must get caution. If the first person gets a suspension, I said, okay, give the two of them caution. And I walked out of that meeting extremely sad. Same infringement, same facts, but same panel, but different outcomes. And that is the crux of the matter when we are talking about ethics, favoritism, unequal treatment, inequity, and that pervades everything. Thank you so much. That will be my last slides. I will take questions and comments. If you are able to play that video, it will be nice. Otherwise, if people get this, they can play it on their own. Thank you, baby.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. This is a whole body of knowledge that Mr. Alawusa has given to us free of charge this morning. We would have paid a lot of money to get this, but we got it free of charge. Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate you. So to our audience, if you have any questions, we currently have 3 questions that I'm going to read out to you, sir. But then just so we get a few more, if you have any questions you want to ask Mr. Alawusa, please drop them in the chat room. I'm sure some of us have businesses we're running or we're about to start them. Do we need deeper context on the necessary corporate ethics we need to put in place? Questions like that. So, sir, let me pick the first question for you. So someone is asking, what is the borderline between sustainability and corporate ethics?
I would have wanted to get better context. Because there's no way you can talk about sustainability without talking about ethics. Because ethics enhances sustainability. Sustainable behavior is all about ethics. It's all about doing what is right every time at all times. That's what it means. That's sustainability. And if you do what is right at all times, there's no secret profit. You are not altering the books. You are not cutting corners. You are obeying the laws. Then if you do all that, okay, your business will be sustainable. So that's why I said probably more context would have been required. But for me, it's one and the same. You cannot talk about sustainability without talking about ethics. I cannot talk about ethics without talking about sustainability because they are interwoven. Okay, yes. So that's my view on that.
Thank you, sir. Another question. Someone says, could you explain the slide 23rd? Literally asking about ownership mentality and impunity. I think it was one of the highlights on slide 23.
So ownership mentality is saying, I own this company. It's my business. Whatever you want or whatever you need or whatever your comment is, it doesn't matter. It's what I want that must happen. Impunity means that you do whatever I want, whether it is legal or not, whether it is in line with corporate policy or not. You just do it and then call everybody's bluff. If you don't like it, too bad. It's my company. That's what I meant by ownership mentality and impunity, which means all of you have just come to work for me, not work with me. It's the kind of environment where your contribution is disdained, it's not regarded as important. After all, you are taking money. So in that kind of environment, your reward is not important. They give you whatever they think you deserve. You know what your contribution is, okay? Promotion is stagnated. People are talked to anyhow, There's just this arrogance around those things. And so that's where the ownership mentality comes in.
Thank you, sir. Ronsiola, I hope he has answered your question. Okay, one more question, sir. Someone said from your slide on social ethics, internal and external stakeholders engagement, I think that the pictorial image that you had. So someone is asking, how does health and safety contribute to achieving the social aspects, ethics of ESG in a business setting, particularly in alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals?
Like I said, that is a whole new. So what I did today, if you look at the workforce strategy culture, okay, let me try and share my screen again so that we can look at that slide. So if you look at the last point under workforce, it's talking about well-being. So if we go into workplace health and safety and all that, it's a whole new. We can take a whole session on H&E and well-being. But this well-being has already covered all those things, because if your people are safe, if you want to talk about their well-being, they will be safe in that environment. Okay, they are well catered for in that environment. Okay, and so it's total well-being. And now it's not just well-being. Even working remotely, have you given them the adequate tools? There are some establishments where they say work from home, but they don't give you any support in terms of data management support, in terms of the kind of tools you need to use, and yet they expect you to work. I know a company, a big company really, when COVID started, they actually gave their staff loans to buy inverters. So they couldn't afford to pay everybody for those inverters, but they said buy inverters, because at some point buying petrol will be too expensive for all of you if you have to stay 15, 16 hours working. So they gave money to them, subsidized, instead of buying inverter at 100,000, for example, buy at 60,000 naira. So they subsidize like 30 or 40 out of it, so that it's just to help. And that's part of well-being, because I can't go, but I have to deliver on a deadline, but I don't have money to buy credit or data. But people are saying deliver, but they're not trying to help me to get that. So it's part of well-being. So what I'm trying to say is that I just covered the H&E with saying well-being. A lot of things are under this well-being. But yeah, H&E is fine. Sustainability and H&E, they are interwoven. It's part of what you must look at when you're talking about sustainability. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. Did we have any more questions? We can take one or two if you have any. Any other question? By the way, our audiences are saying thank you, sir. Thank you for this informative session. Thank you for sharing your incredible knowledge.
Thank you. I should thank them also for having me. So if there are
Yeah,
no
so
more
please do we have,
questions,
sir?
do you want to look at, if there are no more questions, do you want to look at this trivia again? And then
Oh
people should
yes,
tell
yes.
people should tell me that after listening to me for 1 hour or so, how should Ade have handled this? Or how should the chairman have handled this?
Suggestion, sir. I think some people joined after you had talked about the trivia, so maybe you could
Oh, okay.
paraphrase
Okay.
again.
Okay. So in talking about ethics and talking about corporate social ethics and governance, this trivia is just talking about a young man who suddenly found himself as head of a division after CBN took over the bank he worked in and then appointed new officers. So all the divisional heads were sacked, and so he just became, and he needed to sign on behalf of the bank, but he needed to now go to CAC to change the signatories, go to the bank to change signatories, and he approached the chairman because the new people that were in management were not yet filed with the Corporate Affairs Commission. So it needs to go to the chairman for the chairman to approve or sign on the resolution approving him to, authorizing him to sign for the company. However, the chairman, who was still in shock about what just happened to the bank and was close to the former divisional heads, had a different view. And I'm saying that having listened to what we said about corporate governance, ethics, so corporate, I'm forgetting, I'm trying to, corporate social ethics and governance. Okay, having gone through the webinar the last 1 hour plus, how should both of them have handled the matter about Ade and about the chairman? So if you have any comments.
Can we get your contributions to this? What are your thoughts? What do you think Ade should have done? The floor is open for contributions. You can just unmute.
But why nominate people if they don't want to talk?
Okay, hello everyone. Good afternoon.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon, John.
Yes, this is John Osowe. So this is a very interesting situation. However, we must realize that the first responsibility for the company is to the stakeholders, and then to ensure that the shareholders' profits are kept running. And having those two things in mind, shock or no shock, closeness or no closeness, business has to move on. So I think one of the first thing would be to probably sit with the chairman and then talk some few things over with him, help him understand the fact that yes, he may feel emotionally attached to those who have just been sacked, but however, for the sustenance of the organization, the sustainability, and to ensure that the other larger stakeholders don't begin to also feel the negative effects of what is going on within the organization, that is the best course of action to go. And then have the chairman guide as to the best way to begin to approach de-escalating the situation. But fortunately, the organization must move on. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Is there any other person?
Yes, Clinton has something. Clinton, please unmute. Okay. I think I have to unmute him.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir, for the presentation. It has been an
Thank
interesting.
you.
I want to agree with Mr. John. I would also like to mention that since the CBN, which is the regulatory body, already appointed representatives, I mean, those are the people that are supposed to, alongside the chairman, serve as the representation of the company and ensure that the shareholders' profit or funds, keep running the business. So my whole suggestion would be that there has to be a meeting, just like you have said. In this case, instead of a board of directors meeting, the meeting of the representative from the CBN and the chairman, and then go ahead with a resolution that would now prefer that Ade can have the power to sign on some of those things that he wants to sign on. Thank you.
Thank you,
Um,
Clinton.
yes. Is there any other person? Because it's a true life story, and I would like to share what actually happened after. So if I can take one person more, and then I will share what the story exactly as it happened.
One more contribution, please.
Hello,
Good afternoon.
good afternoon. Am I on?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, please. Go ahead, Tunde.
My name is Tunde Ugutuga. The story is very interesting. I like to start with the background. From the conclusion and the reaction of the chairman, it actually shows that the company, like being highlighted by Mr. Alawusa from his teaching, has been run like a club. A lot of things went wrong in decision making because it was more like an old school club. Having said that, I think in the case of Ade, he's caught in a very thick web, but he could have actually used the CBN to achieve what he wanted to achieve. Since the CBN is the regulators and they're the one that actually dissolve the board and whatever, they should have come with all the necessary papers for taking over so that they can take over effectively. But in this case, I assume that if the chairman actually has the interest of the company at heart, he needed to put the interest of the company, beyond his own emotions. And the chairman should know that whether he likes it or not, he's already been sent away and the company must survive. And that is a legacy that he should leave. He is expected to cooperate with Ade. That's my take on it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I
Okay.
also would like to say something. Mr.
Oh, yeah,
Alpha,
please go
before
ahead.
you. Yeah.
Please go ahead.
I would say that possibly the generational gap or age gap between the chairman at the time and Ade was quite wide. So
Yeah.
possibly Ade could have applied some emotional intelligence in handling the matter. This is not a black and white kind of matter. And this is not an email or an official letter kind of matter. So Ade could have
Correct.
probably shadowed.
I don't know if it's me. I can't hear Bimi again.
Yes, it must be a network issue.
I
While we're
like
waiting for
her
her to.
yes, I actually like her train of thought. I wanted that to land.
Be, Ade could have gone then.
So maybe we lost you for like a
Man, we
minute.
lost you for a
I
bit.
could say more of Ade should have applied. Oh, okay. I was
Yeah,
actually hearing Ekundayo and telling Ekundayo too.
We
Okay.
lost you for a bit.
Oh, okay. Okay. Can you hear me now?
yes, you can.
Okay. So I was
Yes,
saying
ma'am.
that Ade could have applied emotional intelligence in handling this matter. That is not a black and white kind of case. It's not an email case. It's not an official letter kind of case because the generational gap between chairperson, the chairman, and Ade could have been very wide. And considering
Yeah.
what had just happened, and
Mm.
reason, if we put into consideration how we run business in Nigeria, regardless of how big, huge, or small the business is, people run business with some emotions attached to it because money in this part of the world is, I don't know if it's safe to say this, is people's life. So they run it with a lot of attachment. They run businesses with a lot of attachment. Even if it's a PLC or limited kind of those huge corporations, people still run it with emotions. So they could have applied emotional intelligence and get his, work done and save, everybody, including the stakeholders. I mean, the customers as well.
Okay.
That would be my submission. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. It just shows that you are Omagba. If I'm allowed to put it
Thank
that
you, ma'am.
way, inverted comma, you are Omagba. Now, there's always implication, and that's why in answering that slide, I said nothing is ever as it seems. We can talk about ethics from now till tomorrow. We will get there. But on the journey there, you have to apply emotional intelligence. So what happened to Ade? Ade sent those documents for chairman. He didn't even take it himself. He sent the documents to chairman to sign. Now the chairman held back the documents and said, I will come back to Ade. Ade didn't even think anything of it to go and see the chairman on why he held those documents. And chairman held documents for like a week or two. I didn't think anything about it until they appointed somebody that Ade will report to. That was when, after like a month and a half, one of his friends now called him to ask, which document did you send to the chairman to sign? He couldn't even remember the document he sent to the chairman to sign. After I went, I said, oh, is the document authorizing me to sign? That was, that's probably the document. That's why they said somebody should come and supervise you. Now, when the chairman got that document, what was happened, what was occurred to him is that why is this boy trying to take over the role of his boss? Okay, his boss barely left and is already trying to take over signatories, sign for the company, which means he is extremely ambitious. He was looking for a way to chase out his boss before, and that's why they are appointed. So to now make matters worse, when he was told that that was why they appointed somebody to supervise him, he was told that his immediate past boss was aware that they were going to do that. He said he couldn't believe it because he was close to his boss and his boss name was not that kind of person. So he spoke to him and his boss confirmed that yes, the chairman called her and the chairman confirmed to her that he was going to ask the new MD to appoint somebody to supervise him. And yeah, so she knew, was very upset that when would this person know? Those are working for like 7, 8 years. No, these are not even mentioning to me. So he too wanted to react. But he now spoke to a more senior person. The more senior person said, "Ah, you are a small boy indeed. Somebody was enjoying life on one seat, having worked for close to 30 something years. You probably work for like 10 or 12 years, and then you are now immediately the incumbent or the successor of someone that worked for like 30 years. Small boy just become a guy immediately. Okay. And you didn't think that the proper way to do it was to call this person to say, I have a problem with signing documents at CAC. I need your help. I need chairman to sign a document for me. Can you help me? She's the person that should have called the chairman to say, chairman, we have a problem in the bank, because chairman still has interest in the bank. We have a problem in the bank. My colleague Ade will come to you with some documents for you to sign and help him so that he can continue the work of the bank. And chairman will say, oh, no problem, no problem. And Ade would have taken that document with the authority of his boss, and he would have signed a document and he would have continued his work. So what I just said is not ethics. So it's just understanding your environment, okay? Emotional intelligence, understanding your environment, understand that something has happened, people are emotional at that point, they are very emotional, they may be irrational, they are very emotional at that point. Just stepping back to say, okay, if it was me, how would I feel if this happened? And then using how you will feel to now condition the steps that you are taking. Now, for Ade not to understand those things, he's actually a small boy because he didn't understand his environment, he didn't understand his culture, he didn't understand the personalities involved. And that was a form of delay, okay, in career, because at 12 or 13 years, being HOD of that kind of bank would have just propelled him. But because he didn't have this kind of understanding, he set himself back. Already. So, in talking about ethics and all that, when careers are involved, please apply some emotional intelligence. It is actually very, very important. And that's my take on this matter. Yeah, because the true story is actually my story. I use my own story, what happened to me, so that people don't fall into that kind of error. It's not just everything is what the book says, is what the law says. There are other factors that are outside the law that can govern what we are looking at. And so in every instance in life, please apply emotional intelligence. It's very, very important. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. I feel like the last, is it not the last sentence, but almost the last sentence got to me like, oh, this is actually Mr. Alawusa's story. Wow.
Ekunda,
My
please
story.
don't miss out Victor's comment. I think it will be brilliant for us to take it.
Okay. So there's a
Madam.
comment here from Victor Ehimwema. I hope I pronounced it well. So let me read it out to you, sir. It said, brilliant presentation. However, the subject matter only applies to those in the Western region. And it takes someone that upholds the tenets of transparency and accountability to practice quality work ethics. Consequently, I am still suffering the challenges of working hard to be a good staff because I exposed a financial misappropriation in my institution. Meanwhile, adequate enforcement in Africa will help.
Thing.
Wow.
And if you follow the webinar, when I was talking about the reality, it just mentioned some of the things I covered. Victimization, okay? Suffering in silence, nobody lifting a hand. So it is just adjudging the kind of environment to her. So if that has happened to you, my prayer and my advice to you is that that's not your habitat. Look for other habitats. In doing that, continue doing your work the best way you can do it. And then at some point, you have to step out and look for a place where you fit in. And that's not your habitat. It happens a lot. And that's why I said boys club, victims mentality, victimization. It is normal. It's one of the factors that we face. And that's one of the realities that I expanded when I spoke. But it's a pity that it has happened this way. However, it is not unusual, is what I'm trying to say. That is not your habitat. Look for your habitat, and God will help you locate that your habitat.
Okay. Blessing as something to say. Let's you can unmute.
Thank you so much, Mr. Alawusa, for a very, very insightful session. I particularly found the comment from Sis Bemi very interesting, on the issue of applying emotional intelligence. But I was just wondering, in the event that, that was applied, but the chairman was still dragging on doing the needful, what is the person supposed to do in that particular situation?
No, the chairman, if it was the former boss that called the chairman, there won't be any drag. He will even sign without any documents.
Mm,
Yeah, so
okay.
that's just
Can
using.
I add that sometimes we may think that we are emotionally intelligent, but
Yes,
maybe not. Maybe not.
yes,
So if you
yes.
try what you regard as emotional intelligence and it's not working, you may want to seek counsel from someone else.
Talk to somebody. Yes.
Exactly. So they
First
might
opinion.
guide you in a different exactly.
Okay.
But if you apply emotional intelligence, naturally you get people to do what you want them to do.
But you will get anything done if you know the pressure points to press. Nothing will be inaccessible to you. If you are
Right.
talking to somebody to talk to them or know what to say to them, you will get almost anything done with the least friction.
Okay.
But they will thank you after you have abused them. If you know what to say and how to say it, it's emotional intelligence. If I had gone through my boss, there wouldn't have been any friction at all. In fact, they would have commended me. So well done. Thank you for your loyalty. You didn't forget your boss. Good work, good work. And we are here to support you in every way. That's what would have been.
Yeah.
Now,
Thank you
from
so
that,
much.
from that action, Chairman would announce, if you need any other thing, call me.
Me. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, that's what
Okay.
it, yes.
So knowing where to apply pressure points. Thank you. My next question now. What would you say is the dividing line between emotional intelligence, coming from the angle of knowing where to apply pressure points, and office politics?
Well,
I very smart.
you know, office politics is not part of my remit here. I don't practice office politics. People have worked with me for many years. I avoid it. But you
Mm,
see, I'm a student of emotional intelligence. I I study it as a subject. I I am, how do I put it now? I am careful to apply emotional intelligence. Not because I want to do something unethical or not, but I try to understand the environment I find myself at any point in time. There are protocols for every environment, and that's important. But you see, office politics is trying to pander to something to get something.
mm,
It's different from emotional intelligence. You have a target in office politics. You are trying to get somewhere, and you want to ride the wave of that politics to get to where you are going. That's office politics. It's trying to jump on the favoritism, the nepotism, the dynamics of that environment to achieve an aim. That's not emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is trying to understand your environment and work in a way that you get the best possible outcome in your daily working. It just goes it even goes beyond your office environment. Your relationship, if you are married, with your children, with your husband, with your siblings, with your community, is understanding who people are, how they think, what they expect from you too, and how to make the best of it. Okay, so if you bring the emotional intelligence, what understanding your self-awareness, okay, understanding your environment, understanding how to relate with people. That's basically emotional intelligence, okay? And then letting people either want to become, achieving something like hero status, when people try to aspire to become like you.
mm,
So emotional intelligence and office politics are not the same. They are in two different buckets. They are not in the same compartment at all. But office politics, my advice is you are riding the back of a grown tiger.
mm.
Once you start office politics, make sure that you kill the tiger. You never come down from the back of that tiger. Because when you come back on back of the tiger, what the tiger will do is to hit you up.
Yeah.
So you either ride the tiger to
Mm,
death or if you come down, you die.
Wow.
That's office politics. Because office politics is tenure-based. Is the dynamic. Once somebody that is leading goes out, the head of that politics goes out, and another head comes in, the dynamics has changed. The dynamic has changed, and you are eating up if you are not on the right part of it. So, but if you practice emotional intelligence, you treat people well, you treat yourself well, you attend to people, you understand, everybody will respect you. They will just leave, they will, he knows what he's doing and all that. It's different from office, but they are two different things. But my advice, be careful about office politics. At a particular level in your career, you may not be able to avoid it. You may not be able to avoid it, but until you get there, please just do your work, practice emotional intelligence. When you get to that point, you can now decide to go deeply or walk around the fringes, depending on what you want to do. However, once you climb the back of that tiger, know that you must ride this tiger to death, or this tiger will kill you. So you choose.
Thank you so much. I'm sure everyone has also benefited from the question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Besson. Thank you so much, Mr. Alawusa. We can't thank you enough. I mean,
Thank you.
there's a lot that I've learned that I'm very sure our audiences to have learned. Some of us that probably didn't even have a deep knowledge of what corporate and societal ethics and governance was. Now we have a knowledge of it. Those that know, they have deeper context, right? So I want to say a very, very big thank you to our awesome audience. Thank you for riding with us for the past 2 hours. I'm sure we've gained one or two things that that we're going to go along with in our personal life, in our careers, really. Oh, there's a book. Yeah. my can you please drop the name of the book in the
My
chat so
book.
that yes, please drop the name in the chat so that
So
our audience
I
can
didn't hear that in Mr. Lausa's profile. So he's the author of Blind Side, a story of faith, restoration, and fulfillment. So it's an autobiography, and I believe it's an ongoing autobiography. I'm going to put it in the chat so you can get to buy it on Amazon,
It's
right?
on
And in
Amazon.
some
It's a
bookshops.
Latana bookshop now. Latana bookshop and the Robin Heights bookshop was on Amazon.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to drop the title.
So if you know Mr. Lausa has blessed you today and you want to know more about him, read more about him, grasp more of the knowledge he has shared in his book, please let's get the book. Let's get a book. Important. Thank you very
Thank you so
much.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so
So
much.
yes, it's been a very informative session and super insightful. Really appreciate you, sir. So to my beautiful audience, please let's this energy, yes, let's also bring it even more to the next month's webinar. Of course, it's a monthly endeavor from the NESG Academy. So yes, next month we will be seeing you again. Thank you so much, everyone. Madam Bim, do you have anything else you want to share with us? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lausa. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, and have a beautiful afternoon.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Mr. Lausa. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Lausa. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lausa. Thank you, everyone.